with Tennessee Jet, or AKA TJ.
That's right. It's
Dude,
good to be here, man.
it's really cool to talk to you. And I saw the podcast you did with I can't remember, Texas to Tennessee, and like I'd never really seen you do like interviews or anything, and it's really cool to see an artist in like this type of context because I don't know, it just gives you like a glimpse in your personality and just how you are, and I've been finding like a lot of people, they don't know that they're artists or, I mean, great, like, you know what I mean, like regular people, but like cool, just humans. It's cool to see that side.
Yeah, I mean, there's some that aren't so cool, but hopefully hopefully the people that you listen to are pretty personable people. There's no reason for them not to be. It's just another job like anyone else's job.
Yeah,
It's got the same struggles, same highs and lows. It's very, it's a blessing to be able to play music for a living for sure.
yeah,
And the hardest day on this job is nothing compared to the hardest day on a lot of other jobs. If you're a cop or a fireman or a soldier, you're a bad day at work for you is going to be a lot worse than a bad day at work for us. We're probably just had bad sound, or maybe the we broke down on the way to the show. That's about as bad as it gets. There's not much worse than that.
yeah. And I'll tell you what, if people listening, they don't know who Tennessee Jet is, there's a really cool way to like get into your music, and it's if you come from like a harder background in music, like I like the heavier stuff, and you've never had a song like hit you and like just make you reflect on your own life or your own thing. And today I put on, Tennessee Jet album, same name. And the first song, we got the lo-fi vocals with the cool harmonies and sounds that people probably have never heard. They'll be like, what is this? I'm interested. It's so unique. And then the second song is like the ballad where you're like, oh, TJ can sing, and write a story song. And then you get like a couple of other tracks of the gnarly guitars and the cool percussion. And then you get Jesus Loves Me, This I Know. And if you ever had like just drank Johnny Walker, or it's just too much, or have any a bad relationship with alcohol, that song, you will sit and judge yourself. Like I just had it today. I'm like, oh my God. I was like, this song, it's and it's crazy because like when I first listened to it, I was like, I wonder if he plays this live. And I saw you performing at Red Rocks, and I couldn't imagine being in the crowd with like two tall boys, hearing that and be like, because it's just a profound song that like, man, and then like I absolutely think your reverb on your vocals is just perfect. It just sometimes I like it's not like I'm trying to be like I listen to music differently than other people, but like you can like see reverb trails. It was like your voice just like spread out like ripples on a pond, and it just fits that song so well. And then I read like you were like that was like your Prince album, where like you from what I read, you did everything on it from production, instrumentation, everything. And I just learned that today, and that blew my mind. Just how it's incredible.
Thank you, man. It's really nice of you to say. I'm glad you dig it. That first record was definitely, um, yeah, that was all over the place from a genre standpoint. But my tastes are all over the place, just like
Yeah.
yours are, just like a lot of people's are. And so that was something where I basically just holed up in a friend's barn for about a month with some gear and just wrote a lot of the songs while I was making it, and had some songs that I had for a while, and it was just a matter of just trying to create something cool. There's a lot of things that there are a lot of records that they sound great, and there's perfect sounding records. But for me, I'm always after what sounds cool.
Yeah.
The recording studio is a lot funner place to be when you can use the recording studio as an instrument, just like any other instrument, and really take chances and not kind of believe that you have to adhere to one way of making something sound. Sometimes the weirdest sounds or the sounds that other people would consider wrong sounds are exactly what the song needs. In a sense, there's really no bad tones. It's just that certain tones are very particular for something in order for them to work. It's like there's no such thing as a bad guitar tone if the song is if it's perfect for a certain song, and it might only be like a couple songs, but it might be the perfect tone for that song. So I've always looked at music like that, like it's different colors you're painting with, and certain colors you use very, very rarely because they're going to mess up a lot of things, but then certain things it's like that's exactly what you need. So that's always been my approach to making my own records, and I've done a lot of them. I've for most all of them except for maybe the country was something that I recorded, mixed, and mastered myself. South Dakota as well. I did that with a friend in Dallas. But I kind of like the hands-on process. I also hate the hands-on process because it's you will second guess things when you're the only person that is in the room. Sometimes you'll chase something that you'd already caught, hours or days or weeks before sometimes, and so you got to be really careful about going too far down rabbit holes. But I love the process, and I love it even more whenever it's faster. Whenever it works quicker.
Yeah.
Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they take longer than they're supposed to take, and they suffer. And sometimes they need to take the time they take because you didn't find that hook or that element to it that you needed. So
I have to say, The Country is probably one of the coolest album covers I've ever seen. It's so
thanks,
simple.
man.
Like if I was, that's how I found a lot of bands. Like, showing my age here, like the record store, Sam Goody, like The Wall. And be like, dude, that looks cool. And it's just like I would take a chance. I definitely would have bought that. And
Yeah, I've certainly the visual aspect of record making is super significant. And I think sequencing is another thing that people don't talk about very often, but just the sequence of songs on records can make you feel a whole different way. And they can also, the songs that you kick a record with, the songs that you end a record with, just the flow, the ebb and flow. I think it's kind of a lost art. I take a lot of pride in sequencing, and just in trying different songs. They hit you at different times of day, different times of the year, even, because I think it's just all important. And in this day and age, I don't know that it's as important as maybe it used to be, but it is to me, and I'm sure it is to you, and music lovers, and that are not people that dig deeper into music than just kind of a fair weather fan of music.
yeah, and it's like I used to be like, even like old cassettes when you could unravel and read, and like it's weird how like I used to love that, and now like it's so lost on me as well, because like when I was listening to your music today, I had my phone in my pocket and my headphones in, and it's just like I do miss that, but like it is cool. Like I love the ranchero. I love it because like I have a wiener dog, and I'm like, and I know he loves it, and I was just like, that's just cool. Like it gives you like like an insight to like you like dogs. I mean, obviously, if you watch the stray dogs video, you know.
Right, that's right. Yeah, he was in that video, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that it's another opportunity for you to represent what you're trying to say, and then represent a part of you as the album cover. So that's one of the. It's cooler whenever you actually buy a vinyl record. It's a lot more to work with, a lot more canvas. Whereas on your phone, it's like an inch by an inch maybe, or smaller, so you don't get to express yourself so much with that. But I was just I associate my favorite albums with the covers in such a strong way. And I think that I would probably hear the music differently if they had different colors. But I've always seen tones in colors. So it's just like I feel like I don't necessarily see pitches in color, but I definitely see tones in color, and I can feel when a record you've got a certain color palette musically and sonically. So I always feel like, and it's funny too, sometimes, at least for me personally, I'm sure it's all individual, but I'll hear a certain record and be like, oh, the album art palette's not the same as the musical palette, so to speak. And I don't know if that's something that's, I don't know that there's necessarily a universal rule, that I'm 100% right on that, but at least to me, it's very clear, you know. So at least from my perspective, there'll be records that the palette just doesn't match, and then there'll be other records where it's just like, man, the album cover and the colors are a perfect match for the sonic colors, you know. And it's just it's an interesting kind of it's an interesting thing to kind of think about records in that way, beyond just the audible or the sonics and into the visual. You know?
Yeah, that it's funny, like talking to you and like listening to your music, like you get a sense of the mind behind it, and you're definitely exactly how I thought you would be talking to. You know what I mean? Like,
Well, what records to you, like when I think of like the Metallica Black album, you know, it's just like, yeah, that's the color that it should be for those songs, you know. And now it's funny because genres have their own kind of colors that almost become cliches at some point too. You know, if it's a country album, or an Americana or a roots album, you're going to see a lot of like dark browns and like and kind of distressed and those types of tones. Metal, you're obviously going to see more black, and you're going to see
yeah,
more, you know, hard contrasting colors. And it's interesting to me. But I do find oftentimes that the genres, the color palettes within the genres, oftentimes do suit the music off. You know, and I don't know how much of that we've been taught that, so that's just what we've come to expect, which I'm sure it's part of that, and how much of that is actually the sonic quality of the music, and the visual correlation. You know, if that makes sense.
yeah.
Like, what's your favorite album covers? Which ones do you just think are just like?
Oh man, my favorite album. God, man, I like like I didn't ever really like get into Iron Maiden, but I loved like Eddie on the
Mhm.
album cover. Like Megadeth has Rust in Peace, and I loved Euthanasia, where they're hanging the kids up on the line, which sounds terrible if you've never seen the context of the song. And I really like stuff like that, but I also like I still laugh at like the cheesy ones, like look what the cat dragged in, and like
Mhm.
Poison, all the 80s. And just look at it and be like, man, I'm glad I don't regret those pants.
Ah,
But obviously the trends change. But man, like it is like Ozzy, with the crucifix and everything. And it's because when you find out, like, that was very, very controversial back in those times. And I like that, like, when like the album art can transcend into what you're getting into with the artist, because there's some artists that they like to stay down the straight, down and narrow, and try to make everybody happy. And there's other ones that just those just let straight up, like, hey, if I got something to say, I'm gonna say. And yeah, and
well, and
it's
it could be a blessing and a curse as well, because the album art, less maybe less so more now within this hyper digital era, but the album art can be your first kind of like impression, you
yeah,
know, towards the artist. So if that album art rubs you in the wrong way, you're going to listen to the music differently, and it's almost a primer uh, for the state of mind that you'd be in to listen to that music. So it's just like, it's pretty important, you know, as well.
yeah,
If you could have great album art, and maybe you're going to go like, man, this album art's just really cool and it's like unique, and so you're already gathering information about the artist that put it out, you know. So then you're going to kind of like start in your head imagining what that music might sound like, and more depth of it. You know, at the same time, if you see an album cover that's just like grosses you out, or it's just something like that, and it could be beautiful music, but you know, it's that first impression, is kind of that first bite. It's so important, you know.
yeah.
um
That's so
and
true.
so I've always just taken it really, really, you know, had a lot of fun with album art. And I don't think you have to have, you know, the sometimes you just snap a picture and it's just the perfect picture, you know, for it. And then sometimes there's more work goes into it from the graphic art standpoint. But I've always just really enjoyed that aspect of making records, is the visual aspect of it too.
Yeah, it's. I'll tell you that the first time I saw the country, the first thing I was like Johnny Depp. It, and I was telling Steve, I was like, do you think? I was like, you think TJ reminds you of like Johnny Depp? And he was, I don't think he really agreed with me, but like, it's funny is I put a post up and I said, Johnny Depp dreams to be the artist that Tennessee Jet is, and I didn't mean any slight towards Johnny Depp. Oh my god, people were like, "Who are you? You're nobody." Blah blah blah. And I'm like, dude, I love Johnny Depp. I was like, is that not nice? But it's such a cool. It's cool. It just catches you. It's so simple and so complex at the same time. Where like it's just really, I love it. Let's just leave it.
Thanks, man. I'd had the idea, and then it just became time to execute it. And we tried to do it with just digitally, and it just never came across the right way. And so Easy Wheeling, I don't know if you know him. He's the one that ended up doing the he did the whole thing. You know, he like got the paper and burned and ripped and cut and then he would do digital at the end and kind of combining things. And so he really kind of pulled off the vision, because it's like, it's one thing to have the idea, and then execution is always, it seems like it's always tougher to get that done. I mean, how many people have had ideas for inventions, or different types of like cool records, but it's like, if you can't execute them, then they're just kind of ideas. You've got to find someone sometimes that can actually execute that vision. And he did. Easy Wheeling, knocked it out of the park,
Yeah.
which he works on a lot of people's records. So.
Yeah. I definitely appreciate his art. He's very, very good at it. But yeah, with your new record, I was wondering, when did the fiddle come about? Because you started adding. I really like the progression of, your first record into more, but you still go back until like you're still a plethora of, like you said, all your taste, all your music, and whatnot, and it's like you were saying earlier. There's like in your face Tennessee Jet songs, and then there's the polished. There's so much that so many people would like, and I love that. But it just seemed like the fiddle, is that like a new addition for your sound?
There was some fiddle on the country, but I think other than that, I don't know that there's been fiddle on other records. I've got my band now has gotten, for the last 2 years, Chris Willingham, which he plays everything. He plays, fiddle and pedal steel are his main instruments that he plays with me. But he's just one of these guys that just kind of can play everything. And it's funny, and I really like this about him. He's someone where if I said like, "Hey, Chris, really need bagpipes on this song. Can you play bagpipes?" And it's like, even if he didn't, he's gonna go, "Oh yeah, I could, yeah, I love bagpipes." And he would show up, to the session with bagpipes, and I just love that spirit, it's of just of fearlessness, and I always I look for that in people that I play with and people that I write with, and because it's the approach that I always have tried to take in music, and just kind of put yourself out there, even sometimes before you're not ready. Like if there's a new thing you're trying to learn on guitar, or if it's a different instrument. A lot of people will wait until they feel like they've kind of mastered it, at least to a certain level of proficiency, before they would ever go out and play it live. And I've just always been more so the like, no, I'm just going to get out there and play it, because you're only going to get better playing it in front of people, because you can play in a room until you're blue in the face. But until you get in front of people, you can only progress so far. And so I've always just liked to kind of be out there on the edge. And when I was doing the one-man band stuff for a handful of years, it was that like 24. That was it. It was always be on the edge, because if something broke down with the equipment, there was no like looking over to someone else on stage to kind of like take the ball for a second. It was all on me. And there were times when I'd break strings on stage, or there's a time whenever like the bass drum, the beater's stuck to the drum. And so it's like, there's no bass drum on this song anymore. So you're just always having to improvise. But that was one of the things I really loved about that project was just that it's all you go, what are you going to do? And I think that's the best way to grow as an artist, is just put yourself in uncomfortable positions. And so that's the same thing I try to do with my band. And I've always said, like, it's better to go for something and miss than just play really safe and tentatively, because honestly, most of the time, and too, as a musician, a lot of the things that we hear as, mistakes, 99 out of 100 people in the audience don't hear those things.
Yeah.
They listen to music differently, and especially, they're probably not glued to one particular thing, just staring at something, waiting for a mistake to happen. So it's just like, there are mistakes all the time, but it's how you handle those things, whether you just kind of, own those things, or just move on, or keep playing, or the old trick of just repeating the mistake, make it intentional. Or that, you can stop for a minute and draw attention to it, or, shoot a bad look across the stage, like, what was that? But it's just like, that doesn't get anybody anywhere.
Yeah.
And the only person that, and it's like the most, it's going to happen if you play with anybody for any length of time. Yeah, everybody at some point is gonna play a wrong note, or play a tempo a little fast, a little slow, whatever it is. But you just got to kind of make it into that thing. That's the beauty of live music. I hate it. My pet peeve is when I see people on stage, and someone will make a mistake, and someone will just like shoot a dirty look over there, like, come on, and it's just like, it's just the lamest thing you can do, because the person's not trying to do that,
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah. I like when, as a musician, you can pick up, and then when they smile, like, oops, that always, but like you said, like, if you just kept trucking down, no one's going to know.
Right. Yeah. And if the person's drank too much or something, and it's just like, and they're messing up your gig, just get through the gig and be professional. Just fire them afterwards. It's just like, it's on stage is not the time to do it, because the people are still, they're there just, to see a show. And so, unless you can make that part of the show, and maybe that ends up being the best part of it. But, I'll see these videos sometimes of like someone's, it's like bands start fights with each other on stage, and it's funny, but it's an intense thing. It's music's that, it's passion, a lot of passion, a lot of ego, and a lot of people not wanting to embarrass themselves. And so you get all those things, and you throw them together, and then you put a bunch of guys in a van for hours on end with little sleep and bad food and stress and whatever. And it's just like those things, it's just ripe for those things. But I don't know. We don't have those problems. All the guys in my band, we get along really, really good, and we're all respectful of each other, and we, put our time in on our instruments, so we know the songs and things. But I hear stories. I've been in bands in the past, but yeah, it's a thing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. Watching a documentary with Tim Lightyear, and he was just like at the bar talking to his other guitar or whatever member of the band. He goes, "Listen, we've been running. We're tired. A fight's coming. We need to get in front of this." And it's, like once you hit enough time on the road, like you can tell, and it's just how it happens, but it's how you react to it of what matters the most. But yeah, like you said, it's, you're in a box with different personalities, and just it's weird how some like small little things just get blown out of like proportion so fast.
Yeah, it can get that way. Fortunately, I'm not in one of those situations. It also comes down to, of like, everybody in the band is pretty pretty clean. You know, we're not drinking too much, and we're not, it's just it's adults, in the
Yeah.
band. So it's just like that makes a difference too. See, everyone's got enough experience under their belt where it's truly about just trying to create something great on stage, and to move the audience, and trying to just create something different. I get real bored. It's like my records indicate. I get really a schizophrenic muse. I'm always kind of, you know, I grew up on, outlaw country, and then just kind of like went the opposite direction for a while, and was doing one man primal, grunge rock stuff, and it just always kind of goes in different places. I hope that there's a common thread somewhere, and that I think that because I'm writing the songs, and most of them it's just me writing. There's not like a lot of co-writing, so at least that part of what I do, hopefully, will be the consistent thread throughout everything. Um, but I just get real bored of the same thing. It's not necessarily uh, good when it comes to trying to establish certain things, from a commercial standpoint or just a consistency standpoint. And I get that. Someone that kind of sticks to one thing, and says, this is what I'm going to represent, and just ride that for as long as they can. It's going to be a lot easier to attract at least a certain type of audience. And so, like, the people that are coming to my shows, they appreciate the diversity of the different things that I do, the different types of songs that I write. And it's always kind of a balance, because I know there are certain uh, people that there are certain fans that are much more so into like the acoustic singer songwriter quiet stuff, which I made a record like that, and I've always got those songs on my records. And then there's people that kind of got hit because of the one man band thing, which is straight up distorted guitars and primal drums and things like that. And so it's just always kind of trying to uh, come up with a set list that satisfies both of those types of listeners, you know, and then at the same time trying to bring some new things to the table too, because I just, like I said, I get bored,
Yeah.
and want to do something next, because I'm just always trying to grow. I think that, people say that it's a really competitive business. And I understand what they mean by that. But I've just always felt like your competition is yourself. You're always just trying to outdo the last thing that you did, or do something that you've never done before, or written, or to write a song that you've never written before, and a style you've never written, or learn a new instrument. I've just always felt like we're just not here very long, and so I want to try all sorts of different genres and instruments and songs. So
Yeah. You definitely have a diverse catalog because like you say, like I can listen to your rocking out stuff, and like I recently found the Oklahoma red dirt country, and that's pretty much what your new album reminds me of. And I like the way you approach it, like the Oklahoma rose. It like it's like Oklahoma groove done with like a prog rock style, because like to chart that song, you would have to really, like, if you were just gonna like throw it out to the musicians to be like, hey, we're gonna cover this, you're gonna need to sit down and really work that one out. And I love that because that's downplaying other artists, but a lot you can get the groove and you can be happy the entire song, and nothing really differentiates from it. But like, which a lot of your songs is, it's it's different song structures. There's still the same groove, and I love that. It can have that sound that you really like, but everything you do is like very unique, and sometimes in big ways, and sometimes in like small, like nuanced ways. And I love that. I feel like, do you produce all your songs? Because I really feel like your influence is that's what maintains what I always hear. There's always something. It doesn't have to be really big and noticeable, but especially with like with percussion. there's something different that I love, and nobody else does it. And it sometimes it's like an accent, like a dash of salt, or it's a big like Waymore's blues. That
Right.
it's one of
Right.
my favorite things that you do.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I either produce. There's been some records that I've co-produced and some singles I've co-produced. And honestly, I'm always looking in the co-production thing, just someone in there that I can bounce ideas off of and make sure that because in theory it should be faster if I co-produce because I've got someone else saying like, man, you got it. We don't need to keep going down, this chasing this guitar tone or whatever. It's like I love this, or someone to say like, man, I think you got a better one in you. Let's keep it rolling, So that's what I'm always looking for in a co-producer. And so I think probably about half the records there's been a co-producer on them, and then the other records it's just me. And like on this last record, just like the very first one, um, I mean, think about it. So like this record and the first record, and I guess Riata second record. So I recorded them all, and then I mixed them, and then I mastered them, and so it's like and then produced them. So it's like you're going to get so close to the material that you're going to, I drive myself crazy at the end of just about every record because it's just like at some point you don't know when a record's done, and I heard Quincy Jones say one time on something like, you never really finish records, you just stop working on them. And I so relate to that because um, now there's a certain place that I feel like, yeah, we're down to that last, like, I'm splitting hairs over 5% on a song. Does it need this here, and very subtle things or little things on the mix, but it's good to have people to bounce things off of. But at the same time, if you really have a vision in your head, sometimes you just have to chase that, and you have to put the time into it, and hopefully it shows. Hopefully it's like I'm happy to hear you say that, um, because I do kind of, I labor over decisions and arrangements and different parts and songs, and try to treat every song and try to make it as dynamic as I can. I love dynamics in music. I love things that come. I like heavy contrast in just about everything, in genres, in volume, and a lot of production down to no production, back to big again. I just like things to kind of be dramatic, and uh, and so sometimes I feel like it's easier to do those things if you just do everything, which is unfortunate because you could be writing more songs, but instead you're kind of mixing the snare drum or something. It's
Yeah.
not it's not what I really would love to be doing, but it's just how those records have been made. Um, this newest record feels a lot like the first record, um, and that the difference is that on the first record I played everything. On this record I used my band, and I used some different guests on a few songs. So it was kind of nice because I could just actually sit down and feel like I was producing like a typical producer would, where you're just directing, as opposed to like directing and acting in your own movie.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. The new record, that Ray Riley Hubbard, that song, the layers on that song are so there's like a tremolo guitar that sits over here, and I love what you did with the banjo. Sometimes the banjo can be real bitey when you're like cranking the song, and man, it just sits in this record like perfectly. And man, that song, that's a groove. And it did remind me of your first album, but it still has it's like new old stock. It has like that polished song. Like I really like how this album, it's all like very like linear with the dynamics and everything in different ways, but it's just you just you can enjoy it the same way all the way through. And I love that fiddle on "Bury My Bones." I just, to hear
yeah,
it like that, and I saw you guys play it at Red Rocks. I was like, man, who would have thought that that would have added such a huge change of that song? Like, it's funny is like, there's the dichotomy of you have yours and Whiskey Myers has theirs, But with this release and this album, it's like yours again now. You know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah, it's
very good.
well
And
they
obviously Brian's on it, so I'm a big fan of Brian.
yeah, Brian's great. He knocked it out of the park on it too. It's funny, and this is one of the reasons I love Brian so much. Is like as a producer, he cut his vocal in Louisiana at a studio and sent it to me, and so I sent him the tracks, and of course my parts were on there, and there was kind of like there was the holes where he was going to sing, and then and I'm thinking like, man, I'd love to have him here at the studio. Hopefully, we get what I need, and it feels like we're in the same room, and so you never know, you might get he might do. I'd never worked with him before. He might sing it 3 times and send it to me and be like, "Here you go," and then you got to kind of go, "Well, okay, we'll do the best I can." And I think he sent me like 80 takes. It was like he sent me different phrasings, different harmony parts, just all sorts of different things. And I really respect him for that because it's just like as a producer, it's just like you might end up using most of all, like the first take he sends you, but just so it would gel with my vocal, there was just options there, so we could just I could do the right contrast and the harmony. I could kind of pick certain harmonies because maybe the next one was going to do something else or whatever it is. And so, but yeah, I thought he just knocked it out of the park. And Whiskey Myers did such a great version of it. And when it comes to covers, I feel like if you're not going to do it dramatically different than someone else, it's like just don't do it because they just have the other people have the other version to listen to. They don't need a copy version of it. And so it became a matter of okay, well let's make the fiddle instead of the mandolin be the thing. Let's there's a little bit of a different arrangement at times, like towards the end of the song. And theirs accented more the huge snare drum. Ours is more on the bass drum doing kind of like the pulse of the song. So, and then you bring Brian into it, so it ends up being more of like a campfire, like people sitting around the campfire talking about it. And so you're just always trying to find ways to kind of make them your own and make them different, without going so far that you just lose the essence of what the song needs to be. So yeah, I'm proud of how it turned out, because there was the bar was set pretty high as far as like you don't want to you've got to make it different, but you still needs to meet a certain standard.
Yeah.
I wish Whiskey's version had been terrible, and then it wouldn't have been such a challenge. But I ended up having to like get oddly freed to play on it because to kind of match the guitar intensity that Jeffers had on Cody had another one.
That's funny. I think it's funny. Brian sent you 80 takes. Yeah. He's the whole reason like this whole channel started. Like, I don't know if you know the story.
I don't know.
My buddy owns an entertainment company that's like co-owned with a record label in Nashville, and he called me up and said, "Hey, I need you to play guitar for my artist." And I was like, "Okay, what's his name?" He goes, "Brian Martin." And I was like, "Okay, when's the show?" He's like, "Tomorrow." And I'm like, "All right." And then like he sends me the set list, and I don't know, like you've seen the set list. It's just the song names. I have no idea who the artists are, and I'm like typing it in. I'm like, man, nothing's coming up. You type in Troubadour comes up, and I'm like, man. And I call him up. I was like, "Hey, man, who sings these songs?" And he's like, "You mean to tell me you never heard George Strait or George Jones?" I was like, "No, I'd never heard these names before." And he's like, "Dude, don't tell anybody that, but you got this." Because like my thing is like, just find out the key, play the pentatonic minor or major. Like I can add a little thing, and like it was funny. I was listening to his music, and I was like, "Oh wow, a lot of like songs about like addiction and working and like just authentic thing." I was like, "I love this voice." And one of my favorite songs still to this day is "Memory Remains." I love the groove on that. I couldn't figure out the chord, and I remember we were in the green room, and he I guess he was kind of impressed. I was outside with like a speaker, trying to learn and play these songs all the way up until we get on stage, and knowing his vocals or his lyrics I just heard. And we were in the green room, and he opened up the fridge, and there was beers in there. He goes, "Hey, you want a beer?" And I thought it was a test. I was like, "No, no, I'm good." But Brian was using he was using the drummer in my band. Was he was drumming, so that also made me feel comfortable of that. But he goes, "Hey Vern, you want a beer?" And he goes, "Yeah," and he grabs two, and I was like, "Oh man, it wasn't a test. It's just like." And I told him, I was like, "Dude, I thought you were testing me. I'm nervous." And he goes, "Nah, don't be nervous, man." He goes, "I'm a semi sober man myself," and I just remember just being very comfortable with him, and he's such a nice dude, and I love his voice. I just love the way how he writes, and
Mhm.
a hell of a guy, man. And it was funny is there was these ladies, and they asked to take a picture with me, thinking I was Brian. They handed him the camera, and he's like, "We really going? We really doing this, Patrick?" I was like, "Man, nobody wants to take a picture with me. Don't ruin this." And he took the picture, and I was like, "Oh, by the way, that's Brian Martin." But
Right.
yeah, he kind of started it because the the drummer came up, and he's like, "Hey man, if you want to play, you got to start listening to country music." So started listening to music, talking about it, and someone said, "You should record that." That was a good take, and I was like, "Man," and here I am talking to TJ from Tennessee Jet, which is mind blowing, and like you're a part of a scene of like some of the most nice and talented musicians and making great music where I know it's very regional, but like you can't turn on a radio out here and get the kind of stuff that you're putting out. And that's one things with the channel I wish I could do is to get more people, to get you closer to the Northeast. Because I know I guess the closest you probably come to me is probably the Bird's Nest, which and
Yeah, and
done
that's southeast too. Yeah, so it's like
yeah.
fairly, I guess. Well, we're talking this year of wanting the one area I've never played. I've been up as far as like Buffalo, and then did DC earlier this year or last year now. But we never played like New England, like never played like Boston.
Yeah.
Like some of those way northeast, areas. So we were talking about trying to get up there this year. Um, so where are you?
I'm in Delaware.
Okay, so yeah, so up there. Um, Well, maybe we'll get out there this year. We're Tiffany's booking like crazy right now, so we're trying to figure out a way where it makes sense to route up there. So,
Yeah, make it
yeah. Well,
not
fortunately
only down.
nowadays with all the streaming services, it's like radio's cool, but it's not like the necessity that it used to be. So you can kind of be into your own thing, and so yeah, there's just there's there's so much music out there,
I know.
um, which is good and bad. It's just um, I'm all for. It's great that people have an opportunity to create something and then just put it out into the world and see what happens to it. The detrimental side of that is if you do it for a living and actually really serious about it, people have to wade through a lot of clutter of just kind of like things that people throw up like as you're competing with every like joke song, you're competing with every just kind of like a made for viral silly song, and I love it. I saw a video for like someone guy wrote a song about the cheese tax where it's like a dog every time you go to the fridge to get the cheese, it's like you got to pay the cheese tax, and I love it. It's funny.
Yeah.
And I think the world needs songs like that, but at the same time it's like we're all competing with that too. It's not just actual like songs that are so how do you have a way of separating those things? And I don't know that it gets separated the way that ideally for a professional musician that makes their living doing this, it is. But shit, that guy, who knows? That guy, maybe he's paying his bills with that song. He probably is. But
Yeah.
what's that? Oh, Tiffany's here, and she just put a kibosh on the going up to Delaware. She said no one goes to Delaware, so that's not
there's
very
no
nice.
there's nothing in like, yeah, yeah, there's nothing big enough for you to come to Delaware. But Boston, they have a a country music following. They really do. I'm trying to think of that. Oh man, I is it Loretta's Last Dance? I can't remember, but they do like country music up there, and
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
that's where Jake from Cody Jinks, and
Hmm.
he's from up there. It's funny as Cody was talking about it, he goes, "Oh yeah, so you're right around there." I'm like, "Well, it's a little far, but
Right.
but it is cool. Like there's a lot of the the bands I've covered, and I when they do stop in Philly, sometimes I'm like, "Oh, cool." It's kind of like it's kind of selfish when you're like, "Oh man, I'll get to like see them with like 20 people in the room, and then I can talk to them, and you know what I mean." And then you go in there, and there's a couple hundred, and you're like, "All right, this is great, but man, you know." But
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
it it is cool that people are starting to really like. I mean, they probably already knew about it, and I was just kind of because all the stuff I listened to, it was all the same. It had no context. Like it didn't move me at all. And then to find out that down in the middle of the country, it's Texas and Oklahoma with the red dirt, and the other states that are doing the same authentic kind of music. It's just like, man, I feel like late to the game of it all, and it, I want them memories too. I wanted
Well,
I wanted to know Tennessee Jet when he was playing, small clubs.
well, you're making your own memories now. It's
Yeah.
like it's always such a constant. It's just a constant. Different phases and stages. I know that like every year I look back and go like, what was something that we did this year that we hadn't done yet. And there's always something that surprises me. And and so I think it's important to like look back and always see that like how things are changing and try to take them in and appreciate them when they happen because I've got I started taking pictures that of some people that I'd become friends with or played shows with, really significant things, and I actually started like just in simple little 8x10 frames, just put them in there and just kind of put them by my door in the studio. So it's just like when I walk past it, sometimes you can just go like, oh yeah, okay. So it's like spending all this time on this record or on writing a song or whatever. It's just like, I think sometimes it's important to see that there's a result for all that,
Yeah.
what it's going to. It's like you gotta remind yourself sometimes because it's really easy for us to get in ruts where we feel like, we're beating our head against a wall and we're getting very little out of it. But we don't actually see the progress, the reward on things sometimes years down the road. But you had to have those things to you had to have those skills or you had to have those times or the timing wasn't right. And by the time you actually get there, you can't appreciate it because you don't realize it's like, this is for work I did 2 years ago or 3 years ago or 5 years ago. And now it's finally paying off. So I think it's important to continually, you know, evaluate of like, things that are new experiences, and try to just have as many as you can. Um, and so at least that's what I do because this business is very easy to get really, really down. And then other times you just feel like you're on top of the world and it's just you got to find some way to kind of keep it even killed to an extent. I'm sure it's the same way in just every business. I'm sure it's the same way in like, if you're whatever you do, there's going to be highs and lows. I think maybe in the arts, those highs and lows are accentuated a little bit more because it's literally your job to kind of try to experience and feel those things more intensely maybe than someone that's not. But yeah, it's figuring out a way to stay positive and then figure out a way to not get too cocky at the same time. You've got to kind of, there's an even keel there because it's sometimes you'll be writing a song and think like, this is the best song I've ever written. This is great. This is just everyone's going to flip over to the song. And then other times you sit down and you're writing on a song and you're like, I'm like, does the world need another song like this? It's just a million. I mean, you just kind of feel like, what's the point of like this type of song? So you've always got to, as you know, you're just always you're always trying to just figure out ways to stay inspired and then to stay positive.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes that's a hard thing to do, especially like you said, like when you walk off the big stage with a crowd of people, and then the next day, like you go to like a supermarket and nobody knows who you are. It's such a weird feeling.
Yeah, I've never, I've actually had a disdain for the whole there's like that it's like a video of like Led Zeppelin getting off the plane, and it's just like their royalty, and people are like wanting to like touch them and kiss their hands. I've always hated that shit. I mean,
Yeah.
just absolutely hate it. Um, the whole thing of like, oh well, because I write songs or I'm up on stage and playing guitar for people, and that people like come out to hear songs, that you're anything like royalty or anything like. I just always thought it was just so silly, you know. I mean, I felt that way. I remember, growing up as a baseball player, and when you're a little kid and you meet like someone that's like your favorite baseball player, it's exciting, Um, but then you grow up, and it's just like now I get more excited to talk to people, not like that, not like that I think they're that they're any better than anyone else. They're just unique talents or unique conversations. That's really the thing that's more inspiring to talk to. I did a thing last year called that was in Washington D.C. Um, uh, and I got to talk for about 30 minutes with Jordan Peterson, just on songwriting. We were just talking about songwriting. So, and then it was just like this thing called Rescue the Republic. And it was like, he's a psychologist and and a writer and so many things. And so to talk to him and get his perspective on songs and words and what parts of the brain access different parts of, lyric and things like that, it was fascinating. So I was more inspired and looking forward to meeting someone like that than I would be, Neil Young or something. And I love Neil Young, but I don't, if I met Neil Young, it'd be like, great, cool. I mean, same thing with Dylan. Dylan's my, you know, on my Mount Rushmore of influences, but I don't know. Do I really care really to meet Dylan? It's like, I don't know, I'm sure he would just, want to just go on with his day, I don't think he'd probably
Yeah.
want to get into a deep conversation about anything. So I don't know. I just think that like, musicians are kind of boring for me to, not boring, but just, you're around musicians a lot, I get that part. But I'd be more interested in something that I didn't know anything about, you know. Um,
Yeah. I'm trying to think. I think like the only person I ever really like would have gotten like crazy about to me, I think it would just be, I mean, granted he's passed on now, me probably like Hunter S. Thompson,
mm,
of somebody, just because like read the books, you hear the stories, and it's like what is legend, what is myth, what is truth, Then you see him on like talk shows, and the guy's like, are they shooting at us? He's like, bastards. He's firing them back off, and I'm like, like in a small dose, I think that would have been fun. Probably extremely terrifying, but but
yeah, he was quite the character.
yeah, I loved his writing. I I can't even think of someone that has that kind of first like cultural I, icon, and it just that just the way he strung words together, and just man, he could insult you, and you would just be like, thank you, because it was written so beautifully. But
Yeah, yeah. I miss that. I mean, I think Rolling Stone magazine used to be like a counterculture, much more so, magazine, and it would have people like that, and like, um, and now I feel like it's just like a lot of things. They've just kind of gotten to a very just homogenized, kind of boring version of their former selves.
yeah,
But Hunter, yeah, the Yeah, like Fear and Loathing, and what was the motorcycle one that he wrote? The where he went out with the Hell's Angels for a while. What was that
Just
called?
Hell's Angels.
Hell's Angels. Yeah, yeah, yeah. He what a nut,
Yeah,
what a nut.
yeah,
But super talented
yeah,
writer, obviously.
yeah. Like the Proud Highway. It's just a collection of letters it, the letters he sent to people, and the way how he talks to them. It's just like, man, you had to like really like be confident because you had to walk to the box, put it in, just well, and then whenever they get it, they get it. And you either get the phone call like, "What?" Just I just loved. It was a whole like attitude, a bravery, but done with a finesse and style. Like the story of him and like Jack Nicholson, where he nailed an elk heart to his door, not knowing that Jack Nicholson was dealing with like a crazy stalker, and they had like the helicopters flying and all the lights on. And he's just like, oh God, I just like learn about like Chris Christopherson. It's like who are these big the big heroes now? I can't even.
You mean when you say big heroes, you mean these kind of eccentric figures like
Yeah, like,
mhm. I wonder, and there are certainly many that, regardless of era, would still have that standing of just being this kind of like iconic, almost folklore, Paul Bunyan-esque figure. If you think of Johnny Cash, you just think like, oh, well, should be in a folk song. It's like he's that kind of character. Same with like Dylan, Merle Haggard. These people that are just like, um, you know, wild, eccentric personalities, or just very, very uh, strong in what they represent. And I wonder how much you'll even see that, because going forward, ever since the advent of like the iPhone and everything, because I think that there used to be like this expression, or there used to be mystery, and then after the iPhone came around, it's like mystery is history. It's like this, if you're an artist, or if you're there, because everyone's going to know everything about you. It's one of the big problems that I kind of, when I'm like drinking scotch and just starting to turn into like old grumpy scotch drinker guy, it's just the advent of how the story is like so much more the focus than the actual music itself or the art itself. I feel like I would rather listen to a great song by someone that had a very boring upbringing than I would a terrible song by someone that's had the craziest stories, because I just want to hear the great art. Now,
yeah,
oftentimes those crazy upbringings combined with the great artist can create some amazing art, but it's a rarity, because usually people who live those crazy stories don't have time to really become artists. They don't get out of that thing. They're usually in like, they die young, or they're like, in jail, or they could just care less about like trying to like express themselves in that way. But I feel like nowadays it seems that the story is really the most important thing. It's just like, would you have a great story? Okay, cool. Now that we can do something with that. Where not so long ago it was just like, do you have great songs? Did you make a great record? We could do something with that. It's just like, and it just seems kind of like it's been reversed somehow. I think the advent is because, do you remember when like American Idol started, and that was back before there was a lot of shows like that. There was always like, short, talent type shows, but American Idol was the first really big one, kind of the sea change. They created that whole era of reality entertainment competition shows. And those shows from the get-go, they realized that like, well, really this show is about the people that are, it's not about their talents. It's about the people themselves and their story and their background and the hardships they've overcome, because that's maybe they felt like that's the way that people at home would respond more to that than songs. And maybe they were right, but I do think that because of that, the whole entertainment ended up being more about what your story is, as opposed to like actually the music you're creating. And you see it now, and it just gets more and more and more so into that thing. I don't think you have to have great songs, or be very good at representing your art in performance wise is if you just had a crazy good story. If your story was just over the top, like, holy cow, this person, like, overcame this. I think that's what's going to get pushed forward to the forefront. And I'm not saying it shouldn't if the art's great, but I've just always been drawn more to the art first,
Yeah.
And I kind of laugh at some of these, like we didn't do with the release of Ranchero, there wasn't like going to be a story that like Tennessee Jet overcomes this and comes up with the masterpiece, to represent this crazy thing of him, like, giving up this or overcoming this or whatever. And because I think that 9 times out of 10, that's just all bullshit. I think, yeah, sometimes people do sit down and they write a record because they went through some shit and they managed to capture it in a way that is like they couldn't have captured had they not went through that. And it's really powerful when it happens. But I think that other 9 out of the 10 are just trying to kind of pretend like something like that happens and created something really cool. Because it's like artists aren't constantly going through like, these just crazy life wrenching like situations. This anything less common than what everyone else goes through. So why is an artist experience going through that any different than anyone else's? And then to try to kind of make that into something more is just kind of like, okay, well, great, good for you. If you needed to do that to express yourself, and more power to you. But I mean, usually it's just like, what can I come with that makes me seem like I really had it hard making this record? It's just like, I don't know. I just always think it's kind of funny when I read these bios. It's just like one after the other of like, how was I oppressed? And so I use that oppression to overcome it and write this great record, or what did I have to quit? What was I addicted to that I had to quit? Let's see, alcohol. Let's go to that one, or let's go to like drug. What can we do? And I think 1 out of 10 times is totally sincere and great. 9 out of 10 times is just total bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah, my opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, give me one artist that hasn't. I mean, you could almost teach a class. It's like how can we make this story better? And it's just like, well, have you ever like not wanted to check into a hotel, so you slept in your car for 4 hours before you could get into the venue or whatever it is? So cool, we'll say you slept in your car, because you couldn't, it's just like everything gets exaggerated where you could say, like, I don't know music. I mean, if I had a nickel for every time that like we have like on a long drive just like slept in our car or slept in our van, it's like, who hasn't? But it would be turned into something that's just like lived out of their car, struggled to do anything, slept on their friends' couches. It's like, well, how nice are these couches? How nice are these houses? How long do they let you do it? They have a lot of food in the fridge? It's like everything gets like turned into the most like heart-wrenching version of that. And what it does is it takes away from the times when people actually do go through shit and write a great, amazing record that people would actually go like, wow, I want to hear about that, and what a way that they captured that, it's amazing. But when everything becomes that, then it's just like none of the real stuff actually gets seen or heard, in the same light. But I'll get off my soapbox now.
Oh, sorry, dude. I get it, and you're right. And what I like about like the Texas and the Oklahoma and all that scene, the fans there, they can see, they have a very good ability of being able to see through that bullshit and find the great artists like yourself and the other people that are really writing just true songs. And it would be nice to see that more on like a bigger showcase, because like you said, like, you know what I mean, like if you were to get into music now, you would see stuff like that, and it would be like, would you like purposely to try to be authentic? Like, you know what, like I'm gonna sell all my stuff, and I am gonna, I'm gonna get on the old box car and go hobo.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah. You probably would, and you'd always have a phone to capture your every moment. Like I've known people like Wes Ship. I don't know if you know Wes or not.
Yeah.
Like Wes legit was like hooked on the hard stuff and was like living. He was like homeless, like legit homeless.
Yeah.
And and it's just like, so he might have a perspective on that in his songs that is more sincere than the person that's just kind of acting like they slept in their car for a night, so they call themselves homeless. It's just, there's just a difference. And um, it's just, but it's the world that we live in. It's just, everything is kind of in that exaggerated sense of oppression.
Yeah.
How have you been beaten down? How have you overcome that? And so it's but there's enough people out there where you can find your audience. And you can do things that are different. There's still going to be an audience out there. If you just wanted to purely be successful, I think that you would. I mean, and by successful, I mean from a commercial standpoint, the easiest way to do it would be to pick one genre and to go so far into it that you become a parody of that genre. Like if people want to go, if you're someone from like this, like let's just say you're from a place that's like there's no country music anywhere, like what people associate with country music. That person might be more drawn to someone that's like the parodied, over the top, heightened version of that thing, because they want to go out and it's just like, hey, we're going to go out and listen to some honky tonk music, and we're going to put our cowboy hats on, and we're going to, like, wear this buckle that we got, and we're going to put our boots on, and we're going to do that, and we're going to, like, really kind of dive into it, and that's great. There's nothing wrong with that. But the acts that person's probably going to want to see is the over the top, like, howdy y'all type, kind of thing. And it's like a Cracker Barrel version of, like, country. And I love Cracker Barrel, I'm not knocking it, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's a very kind of like it's an over the top, Branson, Missouri type vibe. And but it works, and so people do it. And that seems like the overemphasis on story, and then the parody versions of things getting kind of like the height. It makes it a different world for people that are out there just wanting to really push the boundaries of their art and write about things that are not as commonly written about. But it's just, you can still figure out a way to make a living doing it. It's just the way that it is. I don't, it ain't changing anytime soon. So you just figure out a way to continue to grow.
Yeah. And there's people that are, first, like West Ship. I just want that way more is blues. You on live on YouTube with Wes, because I was like, how is he gonna pull this off? And it you guys crushed it. I've watched it like 4 times in a row. I was like, man, and like when you see like the viral videos of Wes, and it's just like, and then you see him now, and I got to see him in like a listening room, and it was it was a young kid that opened up. I always mispronounce his name, but he's this great voice, and I was like, oh man, that's a tough act to follow. But Wes sat down, and you could tell like that dude lived these songs, and his guitar playing, like you can't fake how he was playing. Like when you're younger, or just something about vibrato, like you just been through some stuff, especially with like blues players. There's something about the vibrato that just shows something about your soul, or about like how connected you are with your music. And he had great vibrato on his acoustic, the way he just picked, and he'd just be like, "This is a song when I was locked up in Florida State Prison," and it's just like, these are like story songs, and the way how he sings them, and you can tell, you like, you know what I mean, the authenticity. And I got to speak with him for a little bit, and he very nice guy. He's definitely one of those ones that lived it, and thankfully he's still here to
Yeah.
share his experiences, and the stories, and the dark places that he's been, that we shouldn't want to go there yourself, but as human beings, we're curious.
Yeah, and everybody can draw from you know, in essence, like like, you know, our jobs as artists is to convey emotions, and then to an extent manipulate emotions. We're a great like manipulator of emotions. If you're doing your job right, you can, you know, kind of how you can get people to feel certain things, and then hopefully, if your intentions are pure, it's to get them to feel things that are more positive towards like something. You know, there are artists that don't. They're in, especially times in your life when, you know, artists realize, oh, I have a power to manipulate people into feeling certain ways, and so they might lean into like, well, hey, I'm going to represent this, this, and this, and it's not necessarily a positive thing to make someone want to just, you know, get shit faced drunk, you know, and just drive drunk and, you know, hook up with a bunch of random, you know, people. And it's just, so it's like, so, but that power's still there either way, whether you do it like that or whether you try to inspire someone to say like, maybe put down the drink, or, to, you know, focus more on things in your life that are important, or like try to like be a better father or whatever it is, you know. It's like you have that power as an artist to manipulate, um, you know, in a lot of different ways. So it's just like there's a responsibility, I think, to, and I think it comes as you play more, because early on, it's a lot easier to manipulate people into having a good time at the bar. A lot of club owners love it too, you know, and so you might lean into that. But then as you play more and realize, oh no, I have a responsibility, you know, I have to, you know, I can do some really positive things with these songs, and so those in having the ability to manipulate people in that way, I don't think you necessarily have to. And someone like Wes has experienced like prison and things like that. I don't think you necessarily have to have experienced prison to be able to convey the feeling of feeling like you're locked up, or that you're trapped, or that you're lonely, or that you regret things that you've done. You know, it's all, that's why Johnny Cash didn't actually shoot a man in Reno just to watch him die. But when he sings it, man, you believe it. You know, you believe like, well, I could certainly believe that, you know, where he's coming from, because it's all the same emotion, you know. Um, but it's a powerful thing. I wish we were hearing. I wish the focus was more on that thing that we're talking about now, just that that exchange of emotions to try to actually like make things better, make people think more, make people do what art's supposed to do, as opposed to putting the packaging ahead of the actual content, you know. But,
Yeah, and you know, it's better to live that way too.
well, I think, you
Yeah,
know, people can do, you know, people can live how they want to live. I just feel like I've just always felt a sense of responsibility, and even when there are songs where you, like I have a song on the new record called "From the River to the Sea," and so it's like the title is right away is gonna is, and I knew this title is going to be misinterpreted. It's going to be, uh, you know, it's going to ruffle some feathers before they even hear the song. But part of that's just intentional to get people to actually like lean into it and think about what it, you know, what it represents. And I'm sure that song will get misinterpreted, and people will take it the wrong way, and things. But you know, you've got to make that decision. Sometimes there's songs like that, and you go like, you know what, I know it's not about this, but people are going to think it is, and I don't want to deal with like people like being swayed into thinking something that I'm not. It's not my intention. So that's when it becomes difficult to wonder if you should release something, even though you know damn well that like this is not your intention, you know, on a certain song, because you know people are going to take it the wrong way. And so if it encourages people to do things that are like detrimental to, or counter to what you hope people would do when they hear the song, you got to really ask yourself as an artist, like, well, do I want to put that song out there? You know, because I mean, you could have a song that's all about encouraging something extremely positive, but if you feel like, you know, a certain number of people will hear it and do something extremely negative because of the song, maybe to inspire them to do something very negative, you know, there's a responsibility as an artist. You got to go like, do I want to put that song out there, or do I need to like change it, or do I need to like, you know, because people are going to take the song however they want to take it, and you don't necessarily have the control of the song once it's out there. It's only yours until you release it, and then it's everybody's, you know. So, you know, got to definitely. I think about these things; they're important to me, you know. And I've had songs where people have taken things the wrong way in them, and then you realize it's like, well, you're really angry about this, but it's like that's not my intention of what
Yeah.
this song is supposed to be about. And because I've written songs, and you have people sometimes they will say, "Man, is this song about this?" And they'll give me like their what they think it's about, and it'll be nothing like what the song was about when I wrote it, you know. And I'm not talking about any songs that are like controversial songs or anything. I'm just talking about just, you know, an average song of mine, and it'll be like, wow, it's amazing that like that's what this person gets out of this song. But I don't discredit it, because it's like I said, once it's out there, it becomes just like it's for you to take it the way you want to take it. And like, you know, to bring up Dylan again, it's like to bring up Dylan again, it's like I don't really want to know what the songs are about to him, you know, because it's just like they're about certain things to me, and they may be nothing. I'm sure a lot of them are nothing what the song's actually about, you know, but they kind of become just things that are supposed to inspire you to think, you know. But if you weren't going to like look at like a statue or a painting and go like, man, this makes me feel like, you know, melancholy, and for the painter to go like, oh no, you're supposed to feel like enthusiastic and happy and stuff. It's like, well, are you telling me I'm wrong? You know, this is just the way. This is what it makes me feel. You know, so it's just like songs to an extent are the same thing. You know, they're a little bit more literal, and they actually have literal words that are expressing things in a more like less abstract way, or in some cases, depending on the wording and the usage of the of how you put the words together. You can create very abstract things with very simple words if you put them disjointed words together. But it's a, you know, I just think it's a responsibility you have, you know. And so it's just like there were two songs that were recorded for Ranchero that ended up being singles, a song called JFK and a song called and 2+2, the band version of 2+2. And you have to decide like they're going to be singles, they're going to be out there, and they're there, you know, they're going to be there, they're out in the streaming services. But whether to include them on the actual record ended up being more of a how do you want to feel when you're listening to this record type situation. Because like if you're it's almost like certain songs are so like loaded with strong emotions that are outside of the, you know, the emotions of like love and relationships and nostalgia and things like this. The most songs are written about certain songs have become more politically loaded, and so you've got to if you had a record where you had, you know, three of the songs, because you know, I'm sure that like From the River to the Sea will be viewed as like, oh, it's in the same, it's in that vein. There's some charged controversy, and there's some things like that. If all three of those songs were on this record, I don't know that the record, as you listen to it, would take you down the same journey. You know, I think it would be in a certain way, it would be a distraction from kind of like the path you're taking on it. And
Yeah.
I'm not even saying a negative distraction, but a distraction for sure. It would stop you. It would take you out of the moment for a second and make you think in a different. You know, music sometimes is good to make you think about things, and then other times to escape. And so I think that if you're saying, okay, escape, now think about something, now escape, now think about something, I think it could be, you run the risk of it being disjointed. And so then for me, it was just like, well, I'm going to keep these other songs as singles, because they're definitely like, let's think about something. Let's, you know, and then, and just to include it From the River to the Sea on the album, because it's like, it's in a place on the album, I think, where it won't be such a jarring, you know, take you out of the album for a second, because it feels like it flows. It's a little bit more of a universal, timeless message, as opposed to something so period and time specific as say JFK or 2+2. You know, so
Mm-hmm.
you know, just things. These are things that, you know, I think about. I take them real seriously. I know that it's easy to it's easy to kind of write something purely for because you might feel like there's a controversy, or to create like a viral effect. And I think you definitely see people do that. They, writing things purely just to kind of stoke the flames, or to try to rile someone up. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. For me, I've always felt like if I wrote a song that would just end up doing that, it's because I felt something really strongly that I just wanted to like express, because, and honestly, if you're those types of songs that, 2+2 and JFK, they're not the type of songs that are going to go viral, because it's a very specific that type of point of view gets banned and shadow banned and pushed down in today's world. So it's like you can have certain political views, and certain types of songs will go viral so long as they kind of like are in line with one very specific point of view, which tends to be the what those two songs are railing against. So it's just like you're not going to have that thing. So even to put songs out there that are like that, knowing that what it's going to be, it's going to be harder to actually get these songs out there and get them heard. So if you're going to put them out there, you better damn well believe it, because like you're just doing it because you want to express, you want to show other people that you're not alone in feeling this way. So it's like, you've got to, it's a different challenge altogether. But to make a long story boring, River to the Sea, I decided, maybe just one. I think this will work on the record. I didn't want to pull people out of the rest of the record.
Yeah.
Because for the most part, the record is about it's Oklahoma and the red dirt roots that I have, and just that kind of, this part of the country, trying to absorb the where I live. I'd never really done a record that was that heavy Oklahoma. I think 5 of the songs in some way mentioned something about Oklahoma, and so so I wanted the record to kind of jive from start to finish with that.
Yeah, it definitely does, because that's definitely like the sound that like I fell in love with, and it's saturated in what I would call like the red dirt, the groove, and just the fluidity of how the songs flow. And have you talking like you definitely care about your music and everything. And I think like for the people that heard those songs are totally against it, you know what I mean? Which is fine. Like I may not agree with some, but to watch how you are and to see how you speak and see your personality, like there's absolutely no reason to like just be like, well, I'm totally done with Tennessee Jet. You know what I mean? Like that's the thing that kind of like blows my mind. Like we can have differences. We're not gonna be 100% on anything. And I saw a couple of things happen, and I saw some comments, and I'm just like, well, if you don't like the song, wait for the next one. You know what I mean? What you're gonna throw out the entire catalog just because he may have ruffled your feathers? But my thing is like, you're not a militant person. You're not trying to incite anything. You know what I mean? It's what you believe in, and that's what I didn't get about the backlist. And I was like, before you did this, did you even ask him about it? You know what I mean? Like, hey TJ, what? And I thought one of your explanations I read, I was like, how can you read that and not think this is a caring person? That was what blew my mind. I was like, before everybody, a couple of people kind of went out, I'm like, did you even ask them? Because like you said, people may have interpreted it different, or maybe they didn't. It just, it's people nowadays, just like you said, they're like looking for reasons to feel attacked, and it's just, we could have a crazy, we could have a crazy conversation, and I'd be like, that is crazy to believe, but I would never not be your friend over it. You know what I mean? Like, I would never lose a friend over politics or their beliefs if it's not hurting anybody, or if they're not trying to rile it up and just put it over. It's not in a campaigning way. It's just, it's a song, You know what I mean? Like if you don't like it, don't listen to it. It's this.
Yeah, it's I think people just I think they feel like they've got to be it's just so tribal, and I think that people feel like they've got to like whenever someone in this case, like when I put that song out, I think everyone had to show which side they were allegiant to.
Yeah.
And particularly where most of the backlash started was in Tulsa, and I think a lot of people just wanted to show that their allegiance to at least the ones that were opposed to the songs. A lot of people were, you know, you know, very much in favor of the song and more people hearing it. Um, it's just people that are wanting to kind of like show their allegiances in order to like maintain work or work relationships, and which is just kind of like I never responded in kind. It was strange to me that like there'd be people that I've known for like 10 years and played bands with or had had just given them opportunities, just like had them open shows when they were just starting out or whatever. And so you'd think that like if someone really disagreed with the song or didn't like it, they would just maybe just not say anything, just like, but it was no, it was like, no, we've got to, I'm going to like need to double down. I need to show everybody, hey, everybody, I know that you guys think that like, me and TJ were, friends, but I've got to show you that like I'm on team,
Oh.
and it's just but I didn't ever, honestly, I think because I just don't really, I don't know. I feel like you're not gonna. There's such a contagion. This. I feel like there's a like a mind virus, and it's tribal, and it's a very specific point of view that like I feel like we're just so manipulated by our phones and media that I just try to give people the benefit of the doubt. That's like it's a form of brainwashing. I just feel like I'm not gonna like respond in kind. They can throw all these words at me that they want to. But it's just like, yeah, okay, well, that's fine. You can think that way. It doesn't matter. I'm not gonna. I gain nothing by just like attacking you back in the same way that you're saying anything. I'll defend my
Yeah.
song, but I don't really care to. I don't really care to like get into those. To I don't hate anybody, and most people. I would just sit and just okay, cool. Let's just not talk about the song. We can still drink a beer because I don't, whatever.
Yeah.
I just don't
Exactly.
care. I just don't care enough to change their mind. It's just like, I mean, certain things, anyone wants to like, if you believe in something, then yeah, you hope that other people would like at least hear what you're saying and come to draw their own conclusions. But for the most part, it's just like, man, I'm too busy living and making records and like figuring out what I want to do next as far as like, do I want to like, you know, make a movie or do I want to like, just whatever it is, just whatever it is I'm doing, write a book, it's just like I don't have time to really
Yeah.
mess with this kind of like little small town gossip stuff, and so it's just like, but it's songs take you places, man. It's funny. That song in particular took me through that weird time and to the talking with Jordan Peterson about songwriting. It's just like I wouldn't have thought that a year before. It's just like that you just life is just crazy in the way that like it works out, and you can't predict things, and that just by writing songs, sometimes they just like they lead to this and they lead to that, and you're out playing with Willie Nelson, or you're at Red Rocks, or you're you know it's just playing at a rally. Who knows, it's just like songs take you places, though.
Yeah.
It's a powerful thing. So in the end, it's like I talk about all this story being kind of the forefront of everything. It's like there's still a way for a song to kind of like lead the way. It might take longer. It might take a certain type of song at a certain time, but it can still cut through all the bullshit and actually move things along. And remind you why you got into it to begin with.
Yeah. Definitely. Well, we're going on an hour and a half.
Yeah, flew by.
And I yeah, and I know you said an hour, but I don't know if you want to wrap up.
Oh, we're fine, man. I'm
Okay.
here at the house, so yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not trying to stop you. I just I don't want you to look down and go, "Oh my god," because
Oh no,
it
it went by.
happens.
It's gone by very fast. So as long as I get battery, we're good to go. And it looks like I'm good. So
Cool. Yeah.
what's the? I see the mask up there. Is it
Oh,
like the
it's
V for Vendetta mask?
yeah, yeah. I just like the
And then you got
mask.
the yeah. You're like I just like the Vendettas.
Yeah, I
That's the
got
mask you wear when you go and do all your Vendetta in.
yeah, yeah. I heard like some people were like, "Are you an anonymous?" I'm like, "No, it's just I just put it there and never moved it." I used to like I I love Buckethead. I love the mystique
Yeah. You
and
think
just
you think it's Paul Gilbert?
no,
You know?
no. He's too tall. But he did take lessons from Paul Gilbert from what I've read. But man, that he can go from like shred to like that's and then like you hear like the song like Coma. It's like this really cool. It's and he puts out like 30 records a year. But
Who
I
do you who do you who do you think it is? Do you think it's a well-known like someone, or do you think it's just someone that just started the
I I think he's definitely got to be on the spectrum and just has just issues with social anxiety. But like even like Ozzy, he was supposed to play with Ozzy, and he said, you know, like this guy is too crazy for me, and I it, like that song Big Sur Moon. He does it all in upstrokes.
hmm.
Like if you watch his right hand, and it's because that's how he thought you'd had to play, and then like with the two finger things, it's how like he wanted to like transfer piano music to guitar. He's very. It's funny, like you feel like you can know a lot about him, but at the same time know nothing.
Yeah.
But
Seems like
that's
Jack White plays a lot upstrokes too. It's kind of a I noticed it seems like it seems like he more so than I think the average bear, you know. I think he's
yeah,
playing a lot of upstrokes.
yeah. So did Dimebag, and you know you get your guitarists to say like it don't really matter. I'm like, well, if it didn't matter, they wouldn't do it, and
It
it
totally
does.
it's a
Yeah,
different sound. I mean, it totally matters, you know.
yeah,
The way I mean, yeah, all of it matters, you know.
yeah.
The
It's
angle of your pick, the width or the you know how thin or heavy your pick is, you know, the upstrokes, downstrokes, where how close to the pick. I mean, it all matters.
I
And
know it's so endless, and it could just be so frustrating because you'll never learn it all. But yeah, I'm the kind of person like I want a chicken pick. I want to do this. I would love and it's just like it's like man, you'd have to start 14 years earlier. Like
yeah, I think to an extent too, there's I don't think you get to choose your genius. I think there's certain aptitudes that are probably, you know, whether it's before you're even born or whether it's like the way you were exposed to when you were like age like 0 to, well, I guess technically there's not really an age 0, but you know, age 0.1 to like, you know, 2, there's a certain period, you know, when you're a lot of that's developing. Um, but I think that I've always just wanted to. My goal with the guitar has always just been to be able to express myself. You know, so it's just like I don't. You know, people express themselves in different ways. You know, I consider myself more of a finger painter on guitar than like you know a technician painting very intricate things. But oddly enough, I feel like I express myself better in that way. I don't feel like I would be as expressive if I was a virtuoso like you know Chet Atkins or Tom Emanuel or you know someone like that. Um, I'm much more so the school of like Neil Young and Jack White and Kurt Cobain and people that like a lot of like session players kind of scoff at, you know. Um, but I've just always liked a different thing in guitar. I would rather hear just a big ripping power chord with the just the perfect sustain than just hearing a really beautiful little arpeggio played very cleanly. You know, I mean, there's
yeah,
a time and place for everything, but it's what I'm drawn to. That doesn't make it right or wrong. It's just what I just feel more in music. You know, I tend to like the trashier, you know, shittier sounding stuff sometimes on guitar than the really like intricate. I can appreciate it, you know. Like when you hear like Steve Vai or someone like, damn, you know, or Ingve or one of those guys, like it's really impressive, you know. But then I hear like Neil Young, you know, box fan in a thunderstorm or, you know, it sound and you're going like yeah, it speaks to me more, you know.
Yeah, you're kind of breaking up right now.
Keith Richards playing, you know, that he not really playing anything. So it's just whatever speaks to you. That's just always what spoke to me, you know. Oh, I've been more drawn to that. But in everything, I just in music, I just always like the things that are not necessarily that this that great players can do it all. Like record, and he can. It's like it's just kind of like it's but I've just always been drawn to the trashier, grungier, um, and but it's just, you know,
You're kind of like lagging on me.
I lose you again.
Nah, like it's just getting really like choppy. But yeah, I definitely get like in those sounds. I don't know if you're still there.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah, yeah. Still a little choppy. What did you get a phone
It
call?
was
A lot of times it's when somebody gets a
saying
phone
reconnect.
reconnecting. See, it doesn't say that on mine.
This is
But what'll be crazy is
no.
it'll I'll be able to see everything you said after it, and it'll that's the only thing it gets weird because I'll be like just not saying anything, and then
No, I've got it on it. Now that the
yeah,
liveness of like
yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's on my end or not. Yeah, I don't know. I wanted to. There's definitely I have an origin story of playing guitar about a song that's on your new record that like I've avoided forever because the guitar teacher tried to teach me how to play Runaway Train, and I couldn't get over the 1 2 down up 1 2 the picking pattern, and he legit handed me back the.
neither. I
Yeah, you probably can't hear me. But he handed me back my money and said I'll
it's probably my
never be able to play guitar.
it could be my
Uh, never like lost in the sauce. Ah, 20K. Yeah, you still there? No, I think you're like fully locked up though. Man, technology.
oh
Oh, oh. Maybe we'll come back. It's funny. I have to bury my bones in my head. Traces of TJ. Oh, yeah, maybe he'll come back. I don't know. Oh, look. Live stream chat. I was clicking on it. I don't know if anybody saw me clicking on it, and it didn't show anything. The secret sauce is after. I don't know. I guess we got disconnected. But here, I'm going to stop this just so I don't lose it. Man,